am Bobby White, Chief Public Policy Officer with the Greater Memphis Chamber. And again, thank you all so much for being on the line for one of our leadership briefings. We've been doing these for some time as it relates to us hearing from policy officials, us hearing from elected officials, and individuals of influence as it relates to policy, legislation, and strategy on critical issues. And this is definitely one of those critical issues as we talk about a new MWBE program being rolled out by Shelby County government. I do want to take a moment because oftentimes I was talking to Ryan Poe earlier today and just reminding him of how great a writer he is, but he does it so often and with such consistency that sometimes the sin of familiarity sets in and you forget about the brilliance you have around you. I want to take a moment to introduce our speaker for the day and my friend of many years, who is a servant, has been a long time servant for the Memphis community. He served in the county commission, Memphis City Council. He actually has owned his own firm for many years. He specializes in urban planning, real estate, project development, a number of other things. There's so many more things and ways in which he's been invested. Currently, he actually serves in the role of administrator for the EOC with Shelby County government. He's also a Dartmouth graduate with urban planning as his major, and also MIT graduate. So he is someone quite experienced and brings a lot of experience and has the servant's heart throughout it all. We're going to open the line up and ask Shep Wilburn, why don't you come on the line? And actually, we're going to give it to you and want to also make sure everyone mutes their line. And we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A in just a moment. But Shep Wilburn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bobby, for your introduction. And I want to thank all of your members for joining. It's a pleasure for me to be able to make this presentation to you all today. So many of you all I know, and I appreciate all that you do for the Memphis and Shelby County community. I want to just give a quick overview, an overview, I don't know how quick it will be, of how this MWBE program has come about. And then I want to give you sort of, in a brief way, Bobby mentioned that I was on the Shelby County Commission and the Memphis City Council. My involvement with MWBE programs in this community goes back many, many years. I won't say how many because I'll age myself, but I was involved, and this is the county's third effort at an MWBE program. The first effort by Shelby County was back in the early 90s. That program was disbanded. It was deemed not to be done in accordance with the requirements that the Supreme Court had established for having such programs. Similarly, after that, an LOSB program was put in place by the county. I was one of the authors of the original locally owned small business program back in 1996. We have had that program, which is race neutral and gender neutral, for all of these many years, and it continues to this day with some revisions and amendments. And then in 2016, well, actually 14, a new county commission came in. They authorized a new disparity study. That study was completed at the end of 2016, and in 2017, a new MWBE program was implemented on January 1st, 2017. That program was challenged in another lawsuit, and subsequently, the program was suspended on November 30th, 2020. And as a result of the settlement, we no longer had an MWBE program.
Okay, hold on. I think
okay.
Hello? I was hearing someone in the background. As a result of that, we then proceeded to go through the process of having a new disparity study done. That disparity study was begun in 2021, February. It was completed June 27th of this year. And as most of you know, or you may not know, that disparity studies are the basis upon which, the predicate upon which the Supreme Court has said you could have a program that is race and gender conscious. We completed that, and the County Commission adopted it on June 27th of this year, and subsequently the consultant Griffin and Strong out of Atlanta also completed that study and undertook and developed our new program, which was approved by the County Commission on August the 8th, and is set to be implemented or actually takes effect as of today. So that the program is actually beginning. Now, having said that, we're still in the process of adopting new policies and procedures for the program. And those are probably not going to be finalized and in place before the middle of September, and probably looking for an October 1st date when the program will really hit stride. So that disparity study, which was a part of the premise for having the program, found that Shelby County had an underutilization of minority and women-owned firms. The underutilization for minority firms was in all 5 categories. The underutilization of women-owned firms was in 2 categories. The 5 categories that the study looked at were construction, architectural engineering, professional services, other services, and goods. And of course, the disparity for minorities was all 5 of those. The disparity for women-owned firms was a very minimal disparity in professional services and a disparity in architectural and engineering services. So the program that has been addressed and created by Griffin and Strong sought to address those disparities. As a result of that, the new program has some features that were adopted from the disparity studies findings. And let me just quickly tell you what those are. The county should have aspirational goals, an annual aspirational goal, which is a goal that we set internally for the inclusion of minority and women-owned firms, which is changed or revised annually based upon A, the availability of those firms to satisfy the contracts that we have, and B, how well we have utilized them in the previous year in terms of meeting those annual aspirational goals. It indicated that the subcontracts, and this was sort of the main premise of the lawsuit that was settled and the program disbanded. The subcontracts now have goals based upon a contract by contract basis. That those contracts the goals would be established based upon availability and determined by a goal setting committee, much like what the city of Memphis does with this program. Those of you who are familiar with our previous program know that we had hard and fast goals, and that for construction, there was a flat 28% African-American, and there was no deviation in terms of a contract. So we had occasions where that goal was very difficult to meet. And again, as part of the settlement, the county now will have project by project or contract by contract goals that will be established by a goal setting committee based upon availability, and there will not be one hard, fast goal for, say, construction or, say, for professional services or anything else. It also established that we would have a small business reserve program. For those who are familiar again with the city program, this is the same as a targeted market for small business, and it established that those that targeted market would apply for a small business and would not be applicable to MWBE. Now, by that, the recommendation was that contracts less than $50,000 would be eligible for the targeted market program or small business reserve, and contracts that are $50,000 plus $1 would then be eligible for the subcontracting goals under the MWBE program. The other thing that was recommended by the disparity study was a vendor rotation for architectural and engineering firms, such that all of the decisions about what architectural and engineering firms would receive contracts would not be left to an internal determination on a project by project basis. But what would happen was that the county would have a request for proposals or qualifications. An eligible list would be determined. And from that eligible list, architectural and engineering contracts would be rotated. And then lastly, perhaps the newest thing is that the disparity study recommended that construction contracts over $5 million would have a joint venture between primes and vendors of a different race or gender. So that the attitude is that if the prime is of one race, then the joint venture partner must be a different race and or gender. So again, this is for construction contracts over $5 million. That was the consultant's recommendation. Let me just quickly now highlight the program, which was passed on the 8th of this month. The program has a new commercial non-discrimination policy that says that every vendor doing business with Shelby County now will sign a clause saying that you do not discriminate in your utilization of vendors, subcontractors, or your customers, and that you have not discriminated in your solicitation, selection, hiring, or training internally. This is a new clause that will be added to all Shelby County contracts because it was determined Shelby County did not have a non-discrimination policy, hence the ordinance now will permit that to happen. Also required will be departmental forecasts. These forecasts are required to be made 30 days after the budget is approved by the county every year, and they are to be posted to the county website as to the projects that will be becoming available to be done during that fiscal year. That will also be done through social media, but it is a requirement now that every department in county government, what their spend is going to be for the next fiscal year, 30 years after the budget, 30 days after the budget, will have to basically give that to EOC, and we're responsible for getting it posted to the county website to make sure that it is there for everyone to see. Also, the vendor rotation for architectural and engineering firms was determined that should only apply to contracts that were less than $50,000, so that the A&E architectural and engineering contracts above $50,000 will continue to be addressed as they have been in the past, where a goal setting committee will determine what the goal is now. The goal setting committee obviously is new and establish a subcontracting goal for that. Any contract less than $50,000, the list of qualified architectural and engineering firms will be rotated so that the projects will be rotated among them. The annual aspirational goals will be set for minority and women-owned business participation. It will be done annually based upon, as I indicated earlier, the availability and the utilization from the previous year. Griffin and Strong will set the first year, which will be this year that we're in now, based upon the disparity study findings. And every year thereafter, the available firms and the previous prior year's utilization will be used to establish the annual aspirational goal. The annual aspirational goal, I must emphasize again, is just that. It is something that we shoot for as a county to say we want the county to be doing XYZ number percent of contracts. But that annual aspirational goal is not just a blanket county-wide goal. It is a goal for every category of spend. So we determine what the aspirational goal will be for construction. We determine what it will be for architectural engineering, for professional services, for other services, and for goods. And the sort of average of all of those goals becomes the county's goal of what we're going to attempt to do in the way of contracts that include minority and women-owned businesses. It's not a hard, fast goal because, again, there are contract by contract goals that are set based upon availability and other factors. But that will be something that we will be doing going forward. And again, it's very similar to what the city does. In fact, Griffin and Strong is also the consultant that developed the city, did the city's disparity study and developed the city's MWBE program. A minute to talk about the contract by contract subcontracting goals. Those eligible contracts, those that are eligible for setting a goal, will be done by and determined by the goal setting committee. Goal setting committee is something new.
Yeah, how you doing? Do you do walk-ins?
Excuse me? The goal setting committee is a committee that will be made up of the mayor or his representative, the county commission chair or his or her representative, the administrator of EOC, which is myself, and the administrator of purchasing. And we will sit down on a regular basis, whether that's weekly or bi-weekly, we haven't determined yet. That's part of the policies and procedures that we are putting in place to determine what the goals for every project that the county is doing should have, if it should have a goal, because there will be some occasions where there is no availability and where, based upon the characteristics of the project and the contract, a goal would not be something that the project or the contract should have. But this group will sit down and determine what the goal should be as a percentage of each contract that the county has in those various categories that I previously represented. And they will do that based upon a formula that Griffin and Strong has provided that is based upon availability of minority firms in reference to the availability of all firms that are able to do that work. And that will be the contract for that goal. Let me just quickly mention how that might work on a construction project. On a construction project, you have maybe 16 different areas of work that could possibly be on a construction job. And having been a contractor, I have a lot of familiarity with that. On each area, there would be a goal set. So when you're talking about carpentry, the availability of minority and women-owned firms versus the availability of all firms would determine the goal. And we'll come back to what determines availability, but that would determine the goal for carpentry. There would be a goal for painting, determined the same way, a goal for mechanical, a goal for plumbing. Throughout all of the 16 classifications or however many are applicable to that job, there would be a goal set. Then there would be a composite goal that would be set for the entire construction project. And that would be the goal for minority and women-owned inclusion for that particular job. But each trade would have a goal set for that particular trade. Now, some trades would have obviously higher goals than others, and some trades may have none. But then the overall goal for the construction project would be determined by the goals of all of the areas or trades that are applicable and the availability thereof. So it sounds complicated, but it's not, because let's just say if there are 8 firms available and there are basically 2 minority and women-owned firms available, then the goal for that for minority and women-owned businesses would obviously be, 25% for that particular entity. And that's how it goes throughout this process with, again, the determination of availability. And I won't get into the details of that, but there are other factors than, hey, we're here, we're certified with Shelby County, which will be one of the primary things. We cannot include any business as available that is not certified with Shelby County. So I want to get that out there right now, because if there are any businesses that are vendors that are listening and you're not certified with Shelby County, you can't be included as an available firm if you're not certified with us. So I want to get that out there. So that's sort of where we are. Now, there is one other caveat. There's a new category for the minority and women-owned business subcontracting, and that is small minority and women-owned business enterprises. And they are the only businesses that will be counted against the goal. You can still be certified and you can still participate on any job as a minority or women-owned business if you don't qualify as a small minority or women-owned business, but you don't get counted against the goals, subcontracting goals, unless you are classified as a small minority or women-owned business. And I guess you want to know what determines that. Well, according to the ordinance, it is determined by whatever your SIC code, according to SBA, is, whatever the limits are for your participation under that particular classification. You are allowed to have 50% of that or less to be considered a small minority or women-owned business firm. And you have to have 50% or less of whatever the net worth is under SBA to also be considered as a small minority or women-owned business. So let me give you a quick example again, because I think sometimes that helps immensely. Again, in construction, if you're a general contractor, the SBA income limits are 36.9 million, I believe, is a general contractor. So to qualify under the new MWBE program as a small general contractor, then you obviously could not have more than half of that as your annual gross income. And it follows with each NASIC code that SBA has. There is a dollar amount and an employee amount that they give that you have to meet in order to satisfy SBA as being a small business. And we in Shelby County, with our small MWBE program, have adopted 50% of whatever that is or less. We'll be happy to help you with identifying how much that is on business by business basis, but you can go to the SBA website and that will basically tell you what their limits are, and you can then assume where you are. That is a direct result of the settlement of the previous lawsuit, where size and graduation from the program were issues that were agreed to for a new program. And speaking of graduation, if you are a small minority business, you are certified for 3 years, but you will have an annual review every year. At the point to which over the 3-year period, you exceed the size limitation, then you will be graduated from the program. So again, that's something that was agreed to. So it is now a part of our new program. Lastly, and I guess just a couple of brief things, and then I want to obviously make myself available for questions, is that the program also includes in it certain opportunities for certain disabled and service disabled veterans to participate in the program. They are acknowledged to be historically underutilized businesses. And again, the service disabled veterans are identified and defined as those that are certified with the state of Tennessee's Go DBE program. So if you're a service disabled veteran and you're certified with the state of Tennessee's Go DBE Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, then you are eligible to participate in our Shelby County's MWBE program. And certain disabled individuals will be as well. We are working on exactly under the ADA whose disability or what disabilities will be acknowledged or recognized to participate in the program. And that is one of those things that we're still working out. We did add a prompt payment clause where if you do not pay if the prime does not pay their subcontractors in a prompt manner, the prime can have their payment withheld until such payment is made. We also still will have a Citizens Advisory Oversight Board over the MWBE program, as we did on the previous board with the Contract Compliance Committee, which will meet on a regular basis to just analyze and make suggestions to EOC and the county on how the program can be improved and things that are not going as smoothly as they should, that are known by those persons through their contacts with their business groups and the vendors that they work with. And with that, those are the primary highlights, and I'll stop there and open up for questions that might be out there.
And Bobby, can I jump in? This is Dottie.
Yes, you guys feel free to jump in with questions. And if you're not able to take yourself off of mute, you can put it in the chat and then I'll be monitoring the chat.
Thanks. Thanks, Shep. This is Dottie Summerfield.
Hey, Dottie, how are you? Good.
Once we announced this, I had a service co-chair of the Small Business Council for the Chamber. So I've had some questions that have come in from some of our members.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to do them as easily as possible. In reading through the ordinance, there's a woman business enterprise is defined 2 different ways. At one, it's the normal recognition that everything across the country is 51% owned by a woman. Mm-hmm. But at one point in the latter part, when you talk about a WBE, you mm-hmm. specify it's a non-minority owned woman business. Mm-hmm. Which just so that's the first question. What's the difference? So many of us have our certification from a national certifying body, and those are minority women, white women, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So if a minority woman is certified by, say, WeBank, or has their DBE from the airport, can they not participate because they're a minority-owned, women-owned business? What happens? Or do they not count as a minority for you?
Sure. We have this question come up quite a bit as to whether or not a minority woman can participate both under the woman-owned business category as well as a minority business. Again, the consultant has advised that you either qualify as minority or non-minority under the race-conscious portion of the program. There is obviously a goal and an inclusion of women-owned businesses, but you can't participate in both. And the reason is that there are stricter requirements. It's called strict scrutiny for the minority participation piece than there are for the women participation piece. So therefore, and also as a minority woman, technically, I guess the goals will be higher because of the historical lack of participation for minorities than it would be for women. So that is sort of the guidance that we have been given from the consultant, and the legal counsels for the county have basically indicated that the consultants are the authorities, and they are depending upon them to determine what we should do.
So in trying to be able to advise, and you're going to hear this hopefully in a couple of weeks, people who, a minority woman-owned business who calls her WBE, in order to participate in the program, you're going to suggest that they go and get their MBE also and apply as an MBE as opposed to a WBE.
Yes.
Which is a lovely extra cost for most small businesses, but we'll come back to that later.
Yes.
Okay.
May I add a bit to that question, Dottie? When you all are going to be tracking, will you be like a minority woman-owned business when it's both? Will you be tracking that as both, so towards your annual goals, or it would just go for whichever it was certified as, right?
Toward the goals, no. We will only track, again, it's either race or gender. Either we are going to track by gender or we're going to track you by race. We don't track you by both. And historically, because the goals will be separate, then there will be a goal for minority and there will be a goal for women. As indicated, if you are a minority woman, the historical precedent has been that the minority goal has always been higher than the goal for women, so that you would want to qualify presumably for the higher goal than you would the other goal. But again, this is not me. This is based upon the consultant who did the disparity study and whose expertise we all in Shelby County government are going to be relying upon. And by the way, this is no different than the city's program and other programs like this throughout the country.
No, it's primarily just the city and the county. And I must admit, I've never seen that in any other disparity study but that's a whole other issue. So there is in the ordinance, or at least what I read, it says both a 51% owned by a woman and then non-minority women. So there's a little bit of a disconnect in the ordinance as it is now. Can you spend a little bit more time talking about, you talked about the small minority and women-owned businesses.
Sure.
I'm a service company. I am over, I'm well under 50%. How do you decide what we qualify for? Are you going to ask for financials?
We will ask for some validation for your annual income. Yes, we already do that for our LOSB program. We don't keep them, we don't house them in-house, but we do on-site investigations. And when our on-site people come out, they do ask to see your evidence, either your tax return, your bid, to prove to us that you qualify already as one of our small businesses. You have to show it. We don't generally keep that information inside because we know that everything we have is public information, and obviously we don't want folk to have other folks' financials. So, and we're working on right now the best way to deal with having to know what individuals'
Mhm.
incomes are so that we don't have to keep the files internally. But right now for our locally owned small business program, those of you who are familiar with it, we go out and we do an annual inspection at your place of business for a number of reasons, to continue to prove that you are actually a resident of Shelby County, that your business is located in Shelby County, and also to validate your income. We look at it and our people have a checklist, and they basically put on our form complied with the income requirement. So that's sort of where we are. The other thing we're looking at is having people sign affidavits under penalty of law that your income is less than the SBA standards. We're going through a whole bunch of processes to do that. But obviously, if you give us false information, that's a crime.
One last question, then I'll let everybody talk. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get through everybody. Your LOSB program used to have a $1 million sales cap on it, which is different from the small. For those of us here and those of us in this wherever that have our DBE certification, which the airport does for free.
Yes.
And the DBE certification requires the same basic, it requires the same 32 CFR.
Right.
And we have to submit a financial statement with that on an annual basis.
Right.
That's free and that's there. I would assume that you would use either something similar to that, or we could simply supply that to you.
Yes, we will basically, our income and size thing is straight from the DBE SBA requirement. I mean,
But it's half of it. It's half of it on both. Half of the company income and the personal net worth of the owner.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, both of them.
Thank you, sir.
We will get something. Again, we're working all this out because we do want to protect private information, personal income information, business income information as best we can. But if we have to collect it, we will collect it. It's just a matter of how we get it. And we may in fact use the process that the airport and others are already using, because I mean, they're doing it. And if you provided it to them, then we ought to be able to get it the same way.
Thank you very much. I think that's all the questions I got for you.
We do have one question from the chat from Tanya Faulkner. What software or program are you using to track MWBE spending and payments to subcontractors? If there's not one, will you be putting one in place?
We are using B2G. In fact, as part of the consultant's recommendation, we are making our B2G program more robust. We are adding modules, and we will be basically having a B2G process that is almost identical to the cities. Part of our issue with this disparity study was the lack of information. So that what we're going to be doing with B2G is making sure that we can collect the data that we need. Disparity studies are technically, and I believe this program has a 3-year life. And then after that, the county commission will have to decide whether or not they get a new disparity study or they extend the program for a period of time, which they have the right to do again. But that's why we need the information to make sure that we can show whatever progress has been made in terms of reducing the disparity. And B2G, we all believe, is the best way to do that.
What other questions do you all have? Questions, suggestions, concerns, any and all of those are welcome.
Shep, could you talk about, this is Bobby, could you talk about a little bit process wise, just in terms of what's next? I know you talked about it, and then what it looks like based upon the changeover of the county commission.
Well, and I was glad that Dottie brought up the question she brought up, because we've had a lot of questions. Even a number of commissioners have always asked why a minority woman could not participate both as a woman-owned business and a minority business. And we actually went through that during the disparity study. And again, I'm not here to defend the consultant. He's the expert, I'm not, but his expertise was that you either were one or the other. But there are some things that need to be cleaned up, and your point about the language, we will maybe have to address that language with the new commission. We already have identified some internal things in terms of our operation and how we want to work that need to be addressed in an amended form by the new commission. And we're just excited that the new commission at least will come in and have a framework that we can move from to make whatever amendments and revisions that we need. The program is pretty much, I think, a good program. There are some issues that, as with any new program, we're going to have to work out the kinks. And now that the program is passed, my staff and I have been busy looking at those things that we know we need to modify, as well as purchasing, because this is always something that an interaction between EOC and purchasing is how the program will work, so that we don't delay the purchasing process. Because something as simple as how often the goal setting committee meets will determine how fast projects move in the county. So, I mean, if we're only meeting every 2 weeks, then that means stuff has got to wait until the next goal setting committee can meet to determine a goal for a project. Although a project can have its goal determined way in advance if it so chooses, a department can do that. But we're just trying to work out some of those kinks. We feel good about the fact that we have a new commission coming on board. I will say much thanks and a great deal of appreciation goes out to the existing county commission that will be leaving office, with the exception of those returning. This MWBE program was approved with a 13-0 vote. For those of you who are not familiar with the county commission, rarely is anything that might be considered controversial get a 13-0 vote. And yet all the commissioners believe that it is so vital to Shelby County that we do a better job of including minorities and women in our purchasing, that they all supported it. So I think that's a tribute to them, and it's a tribute to where we want to go with Shelby County purchasing.
We have another question from the chat. This is from Michael Detroit of Playhouse on the Square. Any difference in requirements for nonprofit company involvement versus a for-profit company?
Sure. Well, by definition, our MWBE program is only applicable to for-profit businesses. The county has a special process where nonprofit businesses or nonprofit entities, I should say, are excluded from having to go through some of the certification processes to do business with the county that for-profit businesses do. So that will not change. And technically, nonprofits are not eligible entities under the MWBE ordinance.
Shep, one question I have, so I know that there'll be new kind of quantitative goals every year for the number of female contractors, the number of minority contractors. Can you talk a little bit about what the baseline for that is? Like, what is the current annual makeup of either of those? Is that something that was kind of brought out? I mean, obviously in the disparity study, but I would just be curious to kind of hear that, and then your expectation for how that will, kind of what the percent increase will be.
Griffin and Strong, the disparity study consultant, our consultant for the program, has not established the annual aspirational goal for right now. And until we know that, we will not know what we're working on going forward. There have been some preliminary attempts, and we're going through that now. That's one of the things that must be worked out, and it will be in the next 2 weeks. I suspect that, the original annual aspirational goal will be somewhere in the vicinity similar to maybe a bit higher than the cities, because we have not had a program like the city has, and they've made progress in terms of including better than we have. So it probably will be somewhat higher, but I would say that, it'd probably be somewhere at least in that vicinity. But it has not been established yet.
Shep, could you give a little context for folks regarding Rodney Strong and that firm, just so they can kind of understand who that firm is and work they've done previously?
Sure. Griffin and Strong is a public policy and law firm out of Atlanta, which was basically engaged in and involved with disparity studies around the country as one of the aspects of their business. They also advise governments on how to be more efficient and inclusive without a disparity study, just based upon what they already have. Rodney Strong was the contract compliance officer, which is, I guess, the equivalent of what I am for Shelby County with the city of Atlanta under Mayor Andrew Young. He left, he's an attorney by trade, and he's actually a Memphian. He attended Northside High School and went to the University of Memphis Law School. And in between, he attended Morehouse, and that's how he ended up in Atlanta. And during his time at Morehouse, he went to work for the then Mayor Maynard Jackson, who many consider to be one of the most instrumental in developing minority and women-owned business inclusion programs. He was involved in their office of contract compliance. And so he sort of worked with the mayor there, and then he went on to work came back to law school here and went back to work for Andy Young as his contract compliance officer. And then subsequently Rodney left and started his own firm to do inclusion and diversity studies around the country. Rodney has done so many of these studies. He participated in the first one that the city of Atlanta did. And that one is still considered sort of the model of how to do these around the country. He also has done any number of them for airports, for cities. I know he's worked in Florida. He did the city of Nashville study and program. He did the Airport Authority in Nashville's program and study. He's done it throughout the country. Rodney is also a member of the organization American Contract Compliance Association. And American Contract Compliance Association is the premier organization in America for inclusion and diversity of contracts through government. And he's a board member of that organization. He did the city of Memphis's disparity study and their program. He will be doing, and they have apparently determined he will do the revision to their program next year. He is doing our program. He has been engaged by Shelby County Schools to do their program, and Memphis Light, Gas, and Water has engaged him to work with them on developing their revision of the program. So he's very instrumental in knowing Memphis's dynamics, not only from his work, but also as a Memphian. Until very recently when his mother passed, he was back in Memphis all the time. And he, as I said, is a native Memphian. His brother still lives here. And he has a world of experience when it comes to these issues. He likes to also brag that his firm has never been sued, or has never lost, let me back up, has never lost when they have been sued over one of his programs or his disparity studies. So I think he brings to the table the expertise that we certainly wanted. And one of the reasons why Shelby County was excited with this new program and with where we're headed is it does in so many degrees mirror the city of Memphis's program, which has not been challenged. And so we feel like that we're on much better footing now than we previously were.
Shep, you said something about accepting certification. For those of us who are certified, either DBE or MBE or WBE from other bodies, Is the certification process with the county going to be a little easier than it used to be? Because it was
Well,
pretty-
we accept certifications through reciprocity from certain organizations. There are some that we don't. And I know that some of the state certifications we have had issues with. And the reason is because they do not do on-site investigations. We accept anybody that we know does an on-site investigation. And the reason for that is very simple. We have to have someone physically verify for our program that you are a resident of Shelby County, that your business is in Shelby County, and that you are basically who you say you are. And if you are going to qualify for our LOSB program or the new small minority and women business enterprise subcontractor classification, then we have to verify your income in some form or another. So we would probably continue to do that on site, but we may still have to have something determined. And we're working through this, Dottie, with the lawyers on how to exactly do this without violating privacy. That came up very early in our conversations. Well, you know, but we will accept those that do that. Now, the reason we had a problem with some of the state's certifications is because they do not do that. We know that MLG&W, City of Memphis, they do that, and to a lesser degree, the airport does that. We have to, according to the program and according to the ordinance, it's always been underlying our programs, both LOSB and MWBE. The county commission has spoken very, very well and said, we want this to only apply to residents of Shelby County and to businesses that are located in Shelby County. We're not interested in sending Shelby County tax dollars to businesses that are outside of Shelby County. And so we have to verify. And, you know, so we actually come out, as you, those of you who are certified with us know, we actually come out to your place of business. If you say you are a consulting firm, we actually come to your place of business. We verify that you at least have a desk, a phone, a computer, something to do business with, because you'd be surprised at how many people say that they're in business. And, you know, we've had people whose offices were churches. And of course, you know, that's that won't work. And it wasn't even the church basement or something. It was actually the church sanctuary. So we have to verify that you are what you are, and that's part of what we do with our certification. And that's why we can't accept everybody's certification. But to the extent that they can satisfy us, and we're working, trying to make sure that we have better relationships with everybody, then we will accept the certifications. We do have reciprocity with a number of entities. And if you have certification with them, all you have to do is produce your certification from them and answer a couple of quick questions. It's not the long certification process. And then we will use their certification as a basis of certifying you with us.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. This is Gwendolyn Tucker. Mr. Wilburn, how are you doing? And everyone else?
Fine, Gwendolyn, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, I have a question for you.
Sure.
And we were involved in a situation over a number of years related to a RFP that was coming out. Now the last numbers and that the ordinances, they were supported by a disparity study. There was support by the commission, the commissioners, but still those things were thrown out. So what is different this time? That's my first question. What will be different this time? And then the second one is the ones that you named are not necessarily the decision makers. Now I know on large projects, the commissioners have to approve it. And I think, and you guys oversee it, but what will be different this time? And how do you get decision makers on board with this? Because my concern is that we'll be sitting here, and this is the skeptic in me, okay? But that 3 years from now, we'll be sitting here with another disparity study with new policies and procedures, but no more spend with women or minority or small businesses within the area. So a long comment, but just a couple things. And then also too, what can we do on our end to help prevent that from happening in the future?
Sure. Well, again, as is often the case with government in general, but in particular county government, sometimes it takes us a while to adapt, especially to something that's new and different. This time, we presume, because there is a goal-setting committee, and that is a significant change. The goal-setting committee includes the mayor, who has to sign off on any contract, even before it goes to the commission. He must approve it and recommend it to the commission for approval if it's above $50,000. So that by the mayor being included, by the chairman of the county commission being included or their designees, and by both myself as EOC and the purchasing director, administrator rather, being included, then you have basically all of the parties that would to some degree interface with that particular contract on the front end, determining what the goal should be, if there should be a goal, and how that goal should be applied. And so the recommendation from us would go to the department. The department would include that goal as a part of their RFP or their concealed bid, sealed bid process. And then when it came back, then they would be reviewed accordingly. If a goal is included and that goal you must, as a part of your bid or RFP process, list on our Form A those firms that you will be using to meet the goal and what percentage and dollar amount you will be using them for on that contract. And once it comes back into purchasing will determine whether or not that process you have met the goal. If you didn't, did you have your good faith efforts to the point of where it's still approvable? And the good faith effort thing is a whole process. If you want me to, I'll talk about that a little bit. But in the end, I am the party that decides whether anybody met the good faith efforts or not. I'm the final decider, as someone else said some time ago. And so it goes through a process where purchasing first determines it, then the chief diversity officer, supply officer in my office looks at it. If they agree, then that's the end of it. If they disagree, then it comes to me. And so at that point, we will determine whether or not you actually made a sincere effort to be involved. Part of the good faith effort and part of the new charge that I've been given by the ordinance is I have the ability to investigate a bid or a RFP to understand why a prime's MWBE participation as listed as a part of their bid is significantly less than the goal that was supposed to exist for that particular contract. In particular, if all the other primes had higher MWBE inclusion than they did, and yet they were deemed to have met the criteria through good faith, I have the ability to investigate that situation to determine, was there good faith, really good faith? If it was not, then I can recommend that that contract be denied. Now, you made one point that I think everybody always has to keep in mind. The county commission is a body of 13 members, and it takes 7 votes to approve any contract. And anything that is done at any other level of the county where the contract is more than $50,000 is subject to county commission approval. And having been a county commissioner, I can tell you that the county commission can approve or reject any contract for any reason, any and all reasons, and they don't have to tell you why. So that's the nature of the political process that we operate under. So if 7 people think that it's a good contract, they can vote for it. If they think it's a bad contract, they can vote against it. Notwithstanding that others in county government may have felt like it was the best contract. If 7 people voted down, then we got to go through the process all over again. of either rebidding it or putting it out for an RFP again and go through the process all over with. So that's just the way county government operates.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Shep, for being on today. I think we've reached the end of our time. We so appreciate you making yourself available, explaining all of the process for this, and then also taking our questions and concerns and all of that. So everyone, thank you again for being on. We'll have a recording of this and potentially some after items to go along with it. Shep, if anybody has further questions after they get off the webinar, or have another comment or thought that comes to them later in the day, how can they reach you? Are you okay with us sharing your email address,
Sure.
or we can
I can
filter
be
that
reached
through?
at the phone number is obviously 901-222-1100. That is the Shelby County EOC office. And my email is Shep, SHEP .Wilburn. That's WILBUN. And I have to tell folk that because everybody wants to put an R in it, and it goes into cyberspace with an R. It's BUN at shelbycountytn.gov. So that is how I can be reached. Let me leave again with one sort of statement. If you're not registered with us, you need to get registered. We register businesses all the way from regular businesses, from the FedExes all the way to the smallest. There are different categories of specialization, but you have to be registered with Shelby County to do business with Shelby County. That's for any and every business that wants to do business. Then if you wish to be certified as a specialty certification, either a small business under our LOSB program or our MWBE program, then you must be certified under one or both of those, because you can be both. We have small and LOSB businesses and MWBEs being the same company. So that I would encourage you to be certified. It's free. I think, Dottie, you said it's time. Yes. It's paperwork. Yes, but it's free. There is no charge for you to be certified with Shelby County. You don't have to pay a dime. So I would encourage you to do that. And if you have certifications with the city or airport authority or MLGNW that you can use as reciprocity, then you can go that route. But please follow through and contact us if you have any questions and become certified with us to do business.